Hello, it's Aimee here, and today I will be showing you my March spreads for this year. I will be using a lot of stamps and an archival ink pad for the majority of my spreads to save some time since last month was so doodle heavy. Here are some of the supplies that I will be using for the stamping. I didn't want to put so much pressure on myself every month to draw everything out, so to prevent burnout, I took a more chill route. Keep in mind, I'm not the most skilled in stamping, so if I mess up a bunch, please feel free to give me some tips. I first start off by stamping the window frame portion of my spread. You can see the light sketch of it, and I will be using that as a guide. This year's March theme is inspired by Hinamatsuri, or often referred to as Girls' Day or Doll Day. It's a holiday in Japan that celebrates girls, and families pray for health and prosperity for them. As I said before, I am not too skilled in stamping, so there are a lot of instances where the stamp doesn't fully come out on the paper. I try to make up for the skipped ink by just using the stamp as a reference to sketch out what should have been there. After that, I start to create the window for the cover by using an X-Acto knife to cut it out. I didn't want to accidentally cut the other page, so I used a plastic sheet used for cutting out stencils on the backside of this paper. Now for the big reveal of what's behind the frame. I carefully take out the cutout portion and voila! It's a Japanese doll. This Japanese doll is actually one that was handed down to me from my great-grandmother. I was always in awe of how beautifully crafted these dolls were and was so grateful to have one in my possession. I sketched it out and started to use a fine liner to outline the sketch. I'm not very good at doodling people, so I was really happy that I was able to somewhat show some resemblance of the doll. I used a light board to trace the stamp design on the other side of the window, and to not blind it with you again, decided to skip recording that part. The whole idea of the window frame was to frame the Japanese doll and also frame the kanji on the quote page. I tried to actually use a brush pen to write the kanji characters, but it didn't work out too well. Instead, I just used a reference of how it should look and went from there. The character I used are happiness, shiwase, health, ken, and fortune, fuku. They are all things that families pray for during Hinamatsuri, and I thought it would be perfect to write the kanji characters for it. While that is drying, now time to add some color to the cherry blossoms. I think the colors I used were a bit too dark for the flowers, but it still turned out pretty. I am obsessed with cherry blossoms, so much so that every March theme has had cherry blossoms on it. Can you guess what next year's March is going to have? The quote page was a bit too plain compared to the rest of the spread, so I added some more cherry blossom stamps to it. I also added some petals flowing to add a bit more movement to the page. If sketching out people wasn't scary enough, coloring people is even worse. I was so nervous on where to even begin with it, especially with the hair. I was pretty lucky in the fact that the doll's skin color was purely white. And then with the hair, I used a sketchy motion, keeping in mind of the highlight that I want in the middle. The more I colored it in, the more confidence I started to build up. These washi tapes are from Japan, and it said that they were kimono designs. I really love using washi tape to color in clothing, and with it being a kimono, it was perfect. The fun part about using washi tape is the satisfying feeling of peeling away the excess. The background of the cover page was too blank for me, so I wanted to add a bit of color to it. I used Coliro pearl colors to paint a shimmery bronze background. Back to the quote page, I write out the English meanings of each kanji character on the side of it and then start to color in the cherry blossoms. These were the colors that I originally envisioned for them. It made them feel more delicate and light compared to the other ones. I wrote March with a very light pink brush pen and then added a darker pink on the bottom half of each letter. I took the same light pink brush pen to darken the tops of each letter and blended it in with the bottoms to create an ombre effect. To add more depth, I used a darker marker to create the shadows of the letters and added highlights to finish it off. With the cover page and quote page finished, now it's time to move on to the calendar. To keep things simple, I used some pretty scrap paper for the sides of the calendar. I cut out the amount that I needed and pasted it on the page. After that, I used a Tombow brush pen to color in the headers of the days of the week. It was a bit of a mess, but I think I covered it up a little bit after I finished lining it all out. I wrote out the days of the week with the Fude no Suke brush pen and kanji. To finish both calendars off, I added some cherry blossom stamps and made sure to trace them again on the other side to make it a seamless picture when you flip the pages. Moving on to the habit tracker, the last drawing that I actually drew was one of the Japanese dolls that represents Hinamatsuri. Compared to the cover page, these drawings were a bit too simple, but I had to remind myself that that was the point of using the stamps to save some time in the first place. I really had a hard time scaling back, even though I knew I needed to. But I got over it and pressed on with lining and coloring in the man and woman. I wrote Hinamatsuri and Hiragana in the middle of them and tried to write shukan and habits on the sign underneath them. I used stamps to print the calendar for each habit and then moved on to the next page. I created a simple study log for this month and on the side of that made a dinner menu for the meals I plan to make for each day of the week. I added more stamps to fill in the empty space and used washi tape to cover some of the areas that I didn't want the big stamps to touch. Moving on to the next spread, this was a super fast spread because all I did was color in the areas that I wanted to use and then added some more stamps to fill in the empty space. However, the fastest spread to complete was the weekly spread. I put a border of washi tape all around the weeks and wrapped it up from there. This layout was similar to last month's layout. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate all of the support I do get from doing these. I'm still trying to get the hang of long form content as it takes a lot more time compared to the shorts I have been doing. Anyways, I hope you all have a lovely day and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.